So it just kind of came to me that I haven't alienated all my friends yet, so I needed to make the point that there we go. Let's chin. It's easy to want to support the third party candidate, and it's good. Usually they're talking good stuff. I think Jill Stein really talked a great ball game. I just don't know what she does the other 3 years between a presidency. You don't hear from her at all. And doesn't mean she's not doing something just because I don't hear from her. But I just mean like I'm at least going to question that. And so with my friends that really supported her, and people that I don't know too, supported her or Cornel West or other people I like, um, like that's got to be part of the reason why we have a Trump presidency. There's also a lot of people that did not vote because they were turned off by um, the Israel question. That's a good reason to not vote. But not voting is not a good choice in that situation. But you understand why they do it. So, you know, we lost that election if you're just going by votes by a couple million. And I'm sure a couple million people either didn't vote or voted for Jill Stein. So all I'm saying is if these people could have come out and just voted for Kamala Harris, um, as opposed to staying home or voting for Jill Stein or Cornel West or someone else like that, Trump wouldn't be president. And I know it sounds kind of like I told you so, but I totally told you so. Um, yeah, I mean, like a Jill Stein presidential list of to-do list. It's like a lot of that stuff that I would buy. It's also easy to be a little Pollyanna and be like, we're gonna not do this and we're gonna not do that. Like it's easy. Obviously, you see Trump saying he's going to do all these bad things and not do them, and the base is angry at him. But it's also easy for a Jill Stein or Cornel West to say, "Oh, we're going to do all these good things," and then as if they're all practical, and or you can get support for them. So I just feel like those people are being naive, and naive's cool because at least they're saying, "Okay, I do want to be politically active. I do want these things to happen." But then the person who doesn't vote, it's like, "Well, then I'm not going to vote." Well, here you go. Here's a Trump presidency for you. How's that going to do for your civil rights? How's that going to do for your bodily autonomy, and etc. So I think it's okay to be idealistic too, and I think that's the piece. The naive piece is like I'm really idealistic, so I'm going to vote for this really ideal candidate. And Jill Stein, there she is. Cornel West, like these. I love Cornel West. I love hearing him talk. Love what he has to say. But there was no way that he was going to be president or she was going to be president. So what are you going to do? Are you going to pat yourself on the back and say, look, I voted for Jill Stein or Cornel West, but then we got Trump? Well, you kind of helped make that happen. And I did tell everybody, and so here it is. So idealism is wonderful. I'm totally idealistic. But I'm not merely idealistic, and I'm not going to just say, well, whatever my idealistic side wants, I'm going to give, because that's not practical. And so realism comes in. And I think we can be more than one thing. I'm not just a realist. And as an aside, a lot of people that call themselves realists are really cynics, justifying their cynical choices or behaviors and saying, well, I'm just being real. So I think for me, as an idealist, I come to realism by saying, hey, Kamala Harris is, somebody who was qualified, really, really well qualified. And yeah, she's kind of seems like she's in the pocket of big business and like most of the other guys, but the other guy's so much worse. Of course, I'm going to choose her. And then, if I'm going to really want a system that doesn't have just two parties and just two corporatist parties, and I'm going to work on that um, in the off years too. And so I don't see those people working that stuff in the off years, and I don't either. But I'm not the one claiming that that's who I am, that I'm a Jill Stein guy, and that she's going to do the trick. And so I'm glad there's someone that articulates points of view, and we should aspire to a lot of what Jill Stein represents on the left. I'm a proud, loud and proud liberal. Of course, that's my plank. Basically, make it more affordable to live here, make it safer to be in groups that are marginalized or formerly marginalized, and let's make them all formerly marginalized, and let's have equity. Let's have safety. Let's have an economy that works for everybody. Let's be empowered. Let's have our bodily autonomy. Let's check out this environment and work to save it and prevent the next horrible forest fires and all that good stuff. But the path to that doesn't go through voting Jill Stein. That gets us Donald Trump. And so maybe it makes those idealist cynics that just never come out and vote again. It doesn't work. It's just this broken system or whatever. But really, sadly, they were empowered. They could have done something about it. They could have made it way better. And then we could have held um, Kamala Harris's feet to the fire and said, "Look, boss lady, you got to do these things. We really want you to support these things. We want you to put your money where your mouth is, and if not, we're going to go to the left of you. We're going to make a more lib party, or we're going to vote for somebody that's more liberal than you, or what have you." And she could have said, "Okay," just like Biden did. Biden came to the left um, in ways that were surprising because we were like, we need these things. And I think he knew that he needed to satisfy the left. And hopefully, Kamala Harris would have said, "Yeah, I'm going to learn that lesson from my former boss there, Joe Biden, and go to the left." And she's more left than him anyway. And I could see her having been a successful president. I also could have seen her being like disappointing, like I found Obama sometimes disappointing, and Biden obviously too. But she's a human being that would have had choices to make at those different times, and they're difficult choices. I think we can sit here and say, "Oh, it's just easy, just do what you want," or "They're just in the bag," and it's like, well, the the system's in the bag, and so these individual people don't get to be senator and vice president and president by um, being absolutely idealistic and naive or not taking any money or something like that. So how do you work within the system that is broken to fix it while still realizing that the only way to get to the top where you can fix anything is by making some deals with the devil? So I don't envy them the decisions they have to make, and at the same time, I don't want to give them too much leeway because it's easy to rationalize that. Well, yeah, um, the system was broken. I'm just working within a broken system, and then they end up being millionaires and stuff. So insider trading and all that jazz. So, but I'm not trying to pick on Kamala Harris. I think that she could have won, obviously. If certain things had gone differently, if she had spoken differently, if she'd had more time, if Biden had dropped out earlier, and or if she'd won fair and square in a primary, or any of the things, might have made her get out the vote a little better. If she could have articulated that she was different than Joe Biden, it would have made certain choices differently than Biden, as opposed to feeling like she was just, carrying it on, and those types of mistakes, and coming too far to the middle. Any number of things could have secured that for her. But um, inevitably, she was really just in a hurry and did a pretty good job. A valiant effort. And really, what we needed to, as people, I think, was to say, well, I'm not going to not vote for Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris didn't do everything right. I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris because she's the way better option. So I think this is kind of like my last post where the gentleman I spoke to at the gym was saying, well, like, give me a reason to be liberal because these liberals have lost me. And I'm thinking, well, be liberal because liberalism's right, or because liberalism's better than conservatism, or, um, in comparison, the liberal option makes better outcomes than the conservative option. So that's just what I believe. I just think that's true. You could prove me wrong, and I'd say, okay, well, um, I'm, my opinion's changed, or I've developed a more, more discernment, or I see things as more gray or nuanced, or sometimes the conservative option in these cases was the better plan, and that's easy to do. Why wouldn't everybody do that? But in the same way that people blame Kamala Harris for not articulating her mission very well. That's true, but we're adults. Just because she didn't articulate how she would do things better than Joe Biden, are you kidding me? Do you think she wasn't going to do things differently than Joe Biden? You're waiting for her to say the right thing in order for you to vote for her? If we were children, I could see that, but we're adults. I think we ought to take responsibility for that. And I'm not merely blaming the Jill Stein voter, but I am saying that to the non-voter. Like, come on, you are absolutely an adult human that is responsible for your decisions, and that your decisions have an effect on the planet and the people that live in it and our nation and people's safety and security and freedom and economic opportunities and the environment. I think it's really quite irresponsible to sit and say, well, she didn't articulate it. She went on The View and said this thing wrong. Oh, no, she said this thing wrong. So you know she was going to be better than Trump. And you had to know at some level that not voting for her means that Trump becomes president. So yeah, I do kind of have to admonish my friends and alienate everybody else at the same time. Like, yeah, man, you knew this. Of course you knew this. I knew this. Everybody knew this. It's denial to pretend like we have to have an ideal candidate. I do want an ideal candidate. I would love it if someone like Jill Stein maybe was the vice president, and then could say, "Hey, I was vice president, and when I'm president, it'll be more like this." So, I mean, I want to legitimize her. I want to make a system where the third party has a chance, and or let's say there's six parties, and they have to come together to form a unity government or something like that. Like I'm not trying to make it about two parties. But what I'm saying is, in the meantime, here we are, and we have to deal with what the actual reality is. And so I think that when people vote for Jill Stein, they're absolutely divorced from reality. And when they're divorced from reality, reality doesn't care. And reality comes. And Donald Trump's the reality that came from their denial, from their divorce from reality, from their fantasy. And so now we get the nightmare. And it's not all on Stein voters and non-voters, people that switched over to Trump. You know, Trump is who he is, and it's easy to get misled by information. But I take that back. It absolutely is on the people that didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Or you could say, well, she didn't have a primary. You're right. It would have been better if she'd had a primary. We know why they didn't have a primary, but there's no law stating they have to have a primary. So yeah, the Democratic Party is not your favorite because it didn't have a primary. That doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel motivating, or you don't feel as involved. So you took your ball and went home and didn't vote. And now you're really going to be fucking not involved. And so here we go. So yeah, I do blame those guys. I'm angry about it. If they could have just come out and voted, or voted for the only candidate that could have won that wasn't named Donald Trump, we wouldn't have this problem right now. We would be dealing with a Kamala Harris presidency where we would have been saying, hey, you better change your tune on Israel. You better stop killing babies. You better stop funding them, giving them weapons, talking like Biden did, hey, I'm a proud Zionist and all this bullshit. We would be holding her feet to the fire while at the same time high-fiving her for being the first female president, for defeating Donald Trump, for defeating fascism, and what have you. And obviously there's a portion of this that's on her for not articulating her message well, but the way, way, way bigger part is on the voters who could have just said, all right, here, I see what's going on here. I don't like this. I'm holding my nose, and I'm voting for her because she wasn't good enough at articulating her thing about Israel. And of course I want to say, come on, Vice President Harris, how could you not articulate something about Israel? How could you drop that ball? Of course she's got to own her part. Of course. And she might be stewing on that now, or regretting it, or it might come out in her book, or whatever is going to go on. Or she might run again and be president and really hold them accountable. And who knows what's going to happen with that individual? And you'd assume Biden will, not live a whole lot longer, and we can blame him for not leaving early enough and being arrogant and thinking he could beat Trump, and just being kind of a middling, um, middle of the road kind of conservative, bumbling Democrat that had some great moments in this 4 years and did some good things and some great things, but also had some major snafus and um, major mistakes, and none more amazing and distressing and damaging, destructive than not just dropping out and saying, "Okay, guys, have a primary or Kamala Harris or whatever it is." But of course, we can. There's blame to go around, but I think that's just like the type of thing you say to yourself when you don't want to take responsibility for how things go. We actually do have a vote, and we can vote for the better candidate even when they don't say all the things we want them to say, when they're not the perfect avatar for what we believe in, when they disappoint us, um, when we oversimplify what it is they have to deal with in order to make their living, to get reelected, to get a bill passed, to horse trade in order to make something happen. We don't know what that's like. And it's really easy to shit all over these politicians and say they're just scum and all this stuff. And some of them are, and a lot of them are in little ways, and are great people in other ways, or valiant. Like, I think Nancy Pelosi was like a pretty good politician who was also like doing insider trading, and you kind of can't like separate the person. She's not just this insider trader. She's also a person that did good work and did this bad thing. And she's just an example. It's just so easy to pick on her, and then all that kind of disgusting talk about her led to somebody trying to kill her husband with a fucking hammer, and so to dehumanize her and stuff. And that's not okay. Like, you make a law that says you can't do that, but you don't try to kill these people. And so someone like Pelosi and the healthcare guys are dramatically different. Obviously, it was not okay to kill that man either, but at least that is like an absolute company of destruction and killing. Um, at least you could see why he was targeted. Um, if you obviously can't rationalize the fact that they just killed him in cold blood, like, that doesn't make things better either. But you can understand that people are absolutely at their wits' end. But with somebody like trying to kill Pelosi, that was absolutely political, and Pelosi's not like oppressing anyone or keeping anyone from getting their medical bills paid or something like that. She supported policies that were not like that. So it's easy to demonize them and easy to say, well, they should do this or I'm not voting. And that's really a child's choice, in my view. You could correct me on Pelosi's record or something like that, but and I'm sure someone on the left would say she was the greatest thing in the world. I don't know, but we can demonize these politicians to the point where either we vote for the wrong person, Jill Stein, or we don't vote at all, or we switch sides to the side that wants to tear everything down, and that's not going to help your bottom line. It's not going to help your parents, your grandparents. It's not going to make things safer. It's not going to make things better. So we can blame the politicians all we want for their foibles, or we can jump, to the guy that's like promising all the stuff that he's just not going to do for you, and bringing out the worst in people. All those are the wrong choice. The right choice was voting for Kamala Harris. And then if she didn't deliver, say, hey, we're not going to reelect you, or we're going to vote for ways to make changes to the system whereby somebody better can run. So she deserved a chance, is my point. She seems like a good human. And if you want to look back at her record and say, well, she could have done this better in her prosecuting life, okay. Yeah, probably so. Gosh, I look back at jobs I've had, and I was like, I wasn't even that great an employee when I was 19 or 28 or whatever it was. Or I had that bad day, or I made these really bad business decisions, or like that's what humans do. But while Donald Trump was, you know, like throwing his father's money around and losing businesses and ripping people off, Kamala Harris was being a prosecutor or being the attorney general of a state with all the decisions that go along with that and making mistakes and doing good things, but being a public servant the whole goddamn time, as if that's not a great thing to be a public servant. And then, went to the Senate and in order to serve her state the best she could, even if she made mistakes, even if she wasn't good at it, she was doing it. You get better at things by doing them. So to me, that's just such an obvious choice. Like to think, well, because our system's corrupted by money, that I'm not going to pick her. Like Trump's not corrupted by money, Elon Musk and stuff. So I can't get my head around the math that people use to have chosen Trump or to have chosen to vote Jill Stein or to have chosen to not vote or some write-in protest vote. Like it's absolutely ridiculous to me. Even though I can obviously concur with, wouldn't it be nice if Jill Stein were president? Sure, she'd make her mistakes too, but she's sure articulated a pretty good plan for running the country and solving problems. And a lot of those solutions should be adopted. Maybe somebody like Kamala Harris would have her in her White House and say, "Yeah, you'll be my, attorney general or just an advisor. Just something." I don't know what Jill Stein's strengths are, but you can have her in there. Say, come on, just be my liberal, super lib advisor, green advisor. Co-opt the Green Party's message into that. Anything can happen, but yeah, somebody's just got to tell me why those decisions made sense. I can't see it, and I care about the people who made those decisions. I know they believe in what they believe, but to me, it was just so short-sighted and not an adult decision based on the reality. And especially since it was about Israel and like, what's Trump gonna go get in Netanyahu's face and stop him from killing people in Gaza? Yeah, I didn't think so. So anyway, I needed to vent that out. I think I've alienated everybody now, but just let me know if somebody's missing. Just being silly, but I guess my point is like I've got to be honest about how I see things in order to be my true self. And like, how do we get to solutions here? It's not by pretending. I don't think so. Be well.